Building a keynote speech as compared to, say, delivering an everyday presentation or running a training program or a workshop, building a keynote speech is a very particular kind of skill. And you really know it, don't you? When you see a great keynote speaker, you might not consciously be analysing why it's great, but somehow you feel it, you know that it's great. So how do you do this? Well, I was very lucky. Recently, I was asked to be the opening keynote speaker at the Professional Speaking Association annual summit. And I put together an almost entirely new keynote, and I had lots of interesting conversations with delegates afterwards about how I did that. And I thought maybe that for many of you, some of the things I did would be useful. You could learn from them, and even if you don't agree with me, there'll be things that might provoke you into thinking more carefully about your own presentations or your own keynotes. So I'm putting this together as a series of very quick little videos with one, if you like, one idea in each one or one top tip in each one, following the process that I laid out to build a keynote. So step one, I think, is this. And this might sound really simple, but so many people miss this. You've got to know what your goal is. Step one is really knowing what your goal is. And in order to do this, I think you've got to do two things mainly. One is you've got to be clear on what a keynote can do and what a keynote can't do. Now, keynotes are quite bad, actually, for giving people information. They're not great. If you've got 30 bullet points of things that people really need to know, a keynote isn't necessarily the best way to go. People won't remember that much in terms of information from your keynote. Their attention will fade in and out. They'll make judgments based on how you look and sound, all those kinds of things. You know, if you want to give people information, make a brochure or put it in the agenda for the conference. But what keynotes are brilliant at is they're brilliant at affecting and engaging people with information. So one of the first things I think you've got to do in terms of your goal is really understand, how do you want the audience to be engaged with what you have to say? How can you make it as emotional as possible? And sometimes that's by using humor, sometimes that's by using storytelling, sometimes that's by using things that are relevant and provocative and directly speak to the needs of the people in the audience. But you've got to have some kind of goal in terms of how you're going to engage the audience with your information. I'll tell you in a second how I did this with this particular keynote. And then if you've worked with me for any length of time, you'll know my favourite way of establishing a goal is to ask the question, what do I want the audience to do as a result of my message? What do I want them to do, to physically do? And I've found over many years that if you can actually see your audience doing something at the end of your keynote, it really helps you to construct a very clear and solid message. So in my case, I spoke to the organisers about what they wanted an opening keynote to do, and you won't be surprised by the answers. They wanted the audience to be excited. It was a 3-day conference. I'm opening it, so the tone has to feel exciting and enthusiastic. I have to get people interested in what's coming next throughout the rest of the programme. It had to feel sort of, if you like, very generous and very warm. People have paid money to be there. They've invested 3 days of their lives. So all of that has to be wrapped up in my opening keynote. And you'll notice so far there's nothing about any of the information, none of the content yet. I just want to establish very clearly for myself, okay, this is what the keynote has to feel like, and this is what I want to be able to see people doing. So I imagine that in my mind's eye. When I'm talking, I want them to be thinking, oh, this sounds amazing. Let me look at the program when this ends. I want them to be talking to each other in an excited way. I want them to feel they can come up and speak to me afterwards. So I want my tone to feel very welcoming and very friendly. And I also, as soon as I finish and step off the stage, I want them to be turning to the people near them and opening their agendas and saying, this is going to be a great 3 days. What else have we got coming up? So that's my first step. I'm trying to keep these videos very short and very brief and useful for you. I said very short and very brief, didn't I? Bad presenter, right? Don't use redundant language. But you know what I mean, I hope. And I'll join you tomorrow for the next thing that I did.